Hey, welcome. Today, we're going to do something pretty incredible. We're going to take a journey inside the most complex object in the known universe, that 3-pound universe sitting right between your ears. Yep, we're talking about your brain.
So think about it for a second. As you're listening to me, what is actually going on in there? Right now, billions of tiny cells are firing off signals, chemicals are zipping across microscopic gaps, and this whole symphony of activity is creating, well, you. So let's dive in and see how it all works. Now, our guide on this amazing tour is a field of science called Cognitive Neuroscience. And really all that means is it's the science that builds the bridge between the physical stuff in your skull, the cells and the chemicals, and the very essence of who you are, your thoughts, your memories, and everything you do. Okay, so to really get a handle on how the brain works, we have to start small. I mean, really small. We're going to build this thing from the ground up, starting with the most basic, fundamental piece of the puzzle. And here it is. Meet the star of our show, the neuron. This single, incredible cell is the absolute bedrock of your entire nervous system. You can think of it like a tiny biological switch that powers every single thought, feeling, and action you'll ever have. So a neuron is kind of like a piece of biological wiring. You see those branchy things? Those are dendrites, and they're like little antennas grabbing signals from other cells. The signal then zips down that long cable, which is called the axon, to be passed on. And here's how it works in a nutshell. A message comes in through the dendrites. If the message is strong enough, an electrical spark shoots down the axon, and then, at the very end, it passes that message on to the next neuron in line. It's a simple little chain reaction. But when you multiply it by billions and billions of times, that's what creates your consciousness. So one little neuron firing is cool, but it's not the whole story. Not even close. The real magic, the thing that makes your brain so powerful, is how they all connect. We're about to get on the neural superhighway. Now here's something that might blow your mind. Neurons never actually touch each other. There's always this tiny, tiny little gap between them called a synapse. It's kind of like they're passing a secret note without their hands ever meeting. So how do they pass the message? Well, they use these things called neurotransmitters. These are basically tiny chemical messengers that leap across that synaptic gap to carry the signal. And these little chemicals are responsible for pretty much everything: your mood, your focus, your memories, the whole shebang. And check this out. This shows us something absolutely crucial about the brain. It's a concept called neuroplasticity. What it means is your brain isn't some fixed, static thing. It physically changes its own wiring every single time you learn something new. The connections literally get stronger. So next time you're studying for a test or learning a new skill, just picture this little guy. You are literally physically rewiring your own brain, building new connections, and making your neural superhighway bigger and more efficient. It's amazing. Now take that simple little 2-neuron connection we just saw and multiply it. Your brain has about 86 billion neurons, and each one of those can form thousands of connections with other neurons. That is the silent, beautiful, electrical storm that is happening inside your head every single second of your life. All right, let's zoom out from the microscopic level and take a look at the big picture. We're going to do a quick tour of the brain's major neighborhoods, starting with the oldest, most fundamental parts and working our way up to the new, fancy high-rises. So you can basically think of the brain in 3 main sections, all stacked on top of each other. At the very bottom, you've got the hindbrain. Then there's the midbrain in the middle. And finally, the big one on top is the forebrain. The hindbrain is basically your automatic life support system. The medulla, for instance, keeps your heart beating and tells you to breathe without you ever having to think about it, which is pretty useful. And that part at the back, the cerebellum, that's your master of coordination. It's the reason you can walk, run, or ride a bike without falling over. Moving up, we get to the midbrain, and this is home to a really important bit of kit called the reticular activating system, or RAS. Think of it like your brain's bouncer. It stands at the door of your consciousness and decides which information gets in and what gets ignored. It's the reason you can focus on one conversation in a loud, crowded room. And now we get to the forebrain. This is where so much of the complex stuff happens. The thalamus here acts like Grand Central Station for your senses, directing all the incoming sights and sounds to the right place. And deep inside is the limbic system, which is the heart of your emotional world. That jolt of fear you feel when you're startled, yeah, you can thank your amygdala for that. We've now arrived at the grand finale of brain evolution, the cerebral cortex. This wrinkly outer layer is what truly makes us human. It's the home of our language, our abstract thought, and our very consciousness.
Now, this cortex is split right down the middle into two halves, the left and right hemispheres. And connecting them is a massive bundle of nerves called the corpus callosum. This is the information superhighway that lets the two sides of your brain talk to each other and work together seamlessly. So let's tour the different lobes of the cortex, starting right at the front. This big area behind your forehead is the frontal lobe, and you can think of this part as the CEO of your brain. So why the CEO? Well, because this is your executive control panel. It's in charge of planning, problem solving, making judgments. When you decide what to have for dinner or plan out your day, that's your frontal lobe firing on all cylinders. Okay, moving back a bit, right behind the frontal lobe, we find the parietal lobe. This is your brain's main hub for processing your sense of touch and knowing where your body is in space. Yeah, the parietal lobe is what lets you feel the texture of your clothes or the heat from a cup of coffee. It also constantly updates your mental map of your body, which is how you can, touch your nose with your eyes closed. It's all about sensation and location. And finally, tucked away at the very back of your head is the occipital lobe. This area has one main job, but it's a huge one. It's entirely dedicated to processing everything you see. Everything you are seeing right now, the colors on the slide, the text, the movement, all of that raw data is being sent to your occipital lobe to be decoded and turned into the rich visual world you experience. It's literally your brain's own private movie screen. So we've just seen this incredible, intricate machine, but what happens when things go wrong? What happens when these delicate connections break? Let's take a look at what can happen when the brain is damaged. A stroke is often called a brain attack, and that's a really good way to think about it. It happens in one of two ways. Either a blood vessel gets blocked, which is an ischemic stroke, or a blood vessel actually bursts, which is a hemorrhagic stroke. Either way, brain cells are starved of oxygen and they start to die. And this is exactly why knowing the brain's geography is so important. The symptoms of a stroke tell you which part of the brain is in trouble. If someone has trouble speaking, the damage is likely in a language area. If they lose vision, it could be the occipital lobe. Knowing these signs is absolutely critical. It can literally save a life. So from a single tiny neuron all the way up to this massive interconnected network that literally builds your entire reality, the brain is just astounding. It really is one of the final frontiers of science, and it leaves you with this one huge, exciting question. If this is what we can do now, what could we be capable of if we understood it even better?